So I'm down in the Gold Coast, and I'm wondering, Halloween, the weekend, this Friday, today, I think, right? And then, or next weekend, I'm sorry. Next Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, those days are all Halloween celebrations because Halloween's on a Tuesday. So that means really clubs can be doing this Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. 6 days of unique Halloween events. So because it falls on a Tuesday, that means people will go through the weekend. Yeah. But anyways, a nice man informed me my headlights were off. But I'm down here on the Gold Coast, and Russian Division, I was going to show you, Rush and State meet up at the point. But Rush is a one-way. State is a two-way. So for these shops up here, they get one-way flow. So they're reliant on traffic coming from the south. And let me show you that traffic doesn't really come from the south. So that's my speed, so I don't put this man on my video. Okay. So we're at the state in Delaware. And if we go up here, so this is what they have to think about, these merchants, traffic flow. Where is your foot traffic coming from? Like Tesla, it's on Delaware. Now Delaware, and think about this, what does Delaware have on it? And why would I want my Tesla dealership or Peter Meller right here on the corner of Delaware? Well, what is going to drive traffic? Number one, businesses, right? People are going to get off and park. And if there's parking around here that people park and go to businesses, that will drive daily traffic. But also, you have 2 hotels, which will drive tourism, business, tourism, or business, pleasure, whatever. So you have the Bristol here, but the Talbot is a hotel, and then across the street from it you have the Four Seasons. The Talbot is a nice hotel, lower price point than the Four Seasons. Four Seasons, I went to my friend's wedding, Alex and Jane, who are Korean. They had their wedding here in the ballroom, and it was awesome. Great wedding. We had a chocolate fountain, chocolate, and you dip in the fruits and everything. And here's the Four Seasons. Jennifer Kim, my ex, she loves the beds. They have feather beds, or the pillow beds, basically. And she said they have very good beds. We didn't stay here. She stayed here before at the Four Seasons. And so you're going to get traffic flow by hotels. So when you open up the merchant place there, you're thinking, okay, well, it's right down the street from this is the John Hancock, right? You have the Omega and everything else. But Rush Street, I'm focusing on now, the traffic runs from south to north. And it runs from east, because it runs on the angle, it runs east-south. It runs more east than south, per se. Or maybe evenly split. But again, now you have the Sears Tower. Where do those people park? Where do those people get off for the bus? Where do those employees, how do they get to their offices? So where do they get off the train? Where do they get off the bus? Do they exit a lot through Lakeshore Drive and just drive into the John Hancock? And what would drive them down there by the Tesla? Well, restaurants. But they got restaurants at Water Tower. Truly. And so you're thinking, when I'm opening up a store, how am I going to get the traffic? And this is really beyond normal thinking. And I've dealt with commercial realtors. But they have to understand where this flow's coming from. So here you have a lot of hotels and everything. So you have the peninsula and more hotels down this way. So up Rush Street, maybe you're getting a lot of tourism traffic, but not local traffic. Because local traffic, they really don't go down Rush. Both walking and driving, they don't go down Rush. Rush is more for tourists. So when you're going down this street, if you've ever looked at the pedestrian traffic, you know, now you have a church here. But again, where did they park for the church? And my friend Joe Perillo, he has a high-end place right here, the Bentley of the Gold Coast here. And he has all these high-end luxury vehicles, Maserati, Rolls-Royce, you name it. And it says Perillo over here. I remember when he bought this, he didn't originally own it, he purchased it. It was a wise move. It says Perillo. And so he has to figure out what type of traffic is coming down here. Then, if he wants to drive in, is an out-of-town person going to purchase a car? Will you come to Chicago? Now, this is shopping. In particular, to purchase the car. Well, if you're from Iowa, yes, you will. If you're from Missouri, St. Louis, yes, you will. If you're from Wisconsin, yes, you will. If you're from Minnesota, yes, you will. If you're from Ohio, I don't know, but I think, yes, you will, because how many Rolls-Royce dealerships do they have in Ohio? Now, they have 3 cities of 2.2 million, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland all have similar populations, and then lots of cities of 400,000. So their population's very diverse amongst many big and small cities. Chicago population is in Chicago and then around Chicago. Now, it used to be 12, they say 9 million. But people will come to Chicago to buy Rivian. Out-of-towners. But you have to put it in their head by what? Marketing to them. So when you have sporting teams that they don't have, like the Chicago Bears, where do they go for professional football in Iowa? Oh, that's right. They don't have a professional football team. Now, they do the Colts in Indianapolis, but St. Louis no longer has a professional football team. No professional football team in Missouri. Wisconsin, they have the Packers. Minneapolis has what? They have the Vikings. But then you look at hockey teams, basketball teams, and others, and you're thinking, okay, they play the Milwaukee Bucks. They play the Green Bay Packers. They play the Minnesota Vikings. So you got to look at the Bears schedule. Then you have to look at the Bulls schedule. Then you have to look at the Hawks schedule. Like, they moved the team out of Minnesota, the hockey team, and went to Dallas and became the Dallas Stars. That was Minnesota. But St. Louis has a professional hockey team. But they don't have a professional basketball team. And they lost their professional football team. It went from St. Louis to California. So you can reach them through the St. Louis Blues. But you have to get them thinking they will come to... They have other dealerships. They have Chevy and, I don't know how many Audi dealerships or BMW dealerships. You have to look at the dealerships. But for these exotic cars and for Rivian and that, it's like anything. When you come to Chicago, you have the money, you can buy. How about buying vacation houses in Chicago or Illinois, like in Galena? It's beautiful. Get a vacation house in Galena. I would buy a vacation house in Galena and go downstate and spend time down there, a few weeks or a few days every year, a few weeks added up. But I would go downstate and buy a vacation property in Galena. But think about this. So you have these cars, which makes this unique, because it's very hard to hold inventory of these incredibly pricey cars. So you're not going to have a lot of Porsche dealerships. You're not going to have Lamborghini dealerships. And Lamborghini is owned by who? Volkswagen. And then Rolls is broken up between BMW and Volkswagen. Because BMW got one component, the Bentley, where Rolls-Royce is owned by who? Volkswagen. Both owned by German companies now. They were British, but the British sold off Jaguar as well, but that's owned by Tata Motors. And so is Range Rover. The British lost all their auto companies. And those auto companies were undercapitalized and their manufacturing facilities were horrible. That's because the Brits didn't invest intellectual capital. They didn't invest proper marketing. Truly, they effed up unbelievably. Unbelievably. Instead of expanding into India, they were bought by an Indian company, but not directly. They were bought by Ford Motors. Ford owned Range Rover and Jaguar. They sold them off in an economic downturn to Tata Motors. That's why Ford, another reason Ford didn't go and bankrupt like GM or Chrysler. But again, featuring this, you got to understand, Rolls-Royce is owned by Volkswagen. Bentley is owned by BMW. Both German companies, but there was a bad law firm that worked for Volkswagen, and they thought they acquired the Rolls and Bentley, and they found out. I would have sued the law firm if I was Volkswagen, because they thought they bought the whole thing, and it ended up Rolls-Royce broke it up and sold the portion, the Bentley, for more money, and sold the rest of the brands to Volkswagen. They wanted to make more money, so they cut two deals. Good for them. Bad for Volkswagen. They didn't find out until basically the deal was finalized that they didn't have Bentley. Their lawyers missed it. Talk about incompetence. That is one of the... If you're doing case studies for legal, Loyola Law School, that is one of the big case studies on acquisition, one of the biggest blunders by a law firm. Somehow they missed that in the contractual negotiations. But hey, more power to BMW. They had better law team, better negotiating, and they got something. Rolls was originally by Volkswagen acquiring it. And then BMW found out they were on the block, and they went after the Bentley. So, again, Perillo, he owns BMW. I don't know how many Audi dealerships or Volkswagen dealerships, but he should, because Lamborghini is owned by Volkswagen. So Rolls-Royce is owned by Volkswagen. Lamborghini is owned by Volkswagen. And they needed the technology. Porsche got acquired by Volkswagen. So Volkswagen owns a lot of high-end performance cars in Lamborghini. They own high-end luxury in Rolls-Royce. That's higher end than their Audis. And so you have to understand this. So here's Loyola. This is business law. And so their lawyers have to understand this if the law school is looking to be more prestigious. And when I went to the University of Arizona, the law school there was named top value for the dollar. It was considered, I think, number one for the dollar because it had the lowest cost and highest value of degree. So there's more than just the most prestigious. There's also the best bang for the buck. And so the University of Arizona Law School was considered the number one value for the dollar. And I forget how many years ago, my friend John Beals graduated from their law school, but it was considered the number one value for the dollar in the United States of all law schools. It had the best value, the value of degree with cost of tuition, and it was the best value. So there's another way to be number one, and UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago. Do you know it's one of the top medical schools when you pair up quality of teaching with price? It's an extremely great value for medical school. It ranks very high on best bang for the buck. I'll put this on Facebook because somehow with YouTube, they very much limit the amount of information you can place with the video, which makes the video less resourced supported. And why can't you integrate wiki links, say, resource information into the YouTube video? Maybe they should think about acquiring Wikipedia and integrating it in. The browser is just general search. Even their Scholar search is general search. So you want to include specifics more. That they do these long pieces with a bunch of side links that fit right in. I signed up to be a contributor to Wiki. Never ended up doing it, but I believe in Wiki. I use Wiki. I love Wiki. It's a very good tool. But again, here we go. Looking at Perillo. So, and this goes down to the Magnificent Mile. And I don't know if there's a Gold Coast Association, which there should be. If not, somebody should start it. And it can work with the Magnificent Mile Association. But you got to understand where your flows are coming from. In this church The entrance is on Michigan Avenue, but I don't know where people park that go to the church. Where do their congregation walk from? Truly, do people walk there, or is their congregation further away and they drive, or they take the bus, or they take the train? And I wish they could take the water taxi, because you could take a water taxi to Navy Pier, get off, hook up with an Uber, and Uber and Lyft and Curb should be working with the water taxi, because once you get on the land, you might have that last mile, right, or so, and you could walk, but sometimes time matters. And so that last leg fits perfectly in for services when they get off the water taxi or ferry. So I don't understand why we don't have an extensive ferry service on Lake Michigan attached to the water taxis on the river. It doesn't make any sense. It can run all year round. And it would be very important. Like Rivian, they can drive people here through the hotels, but they got to get them to think, I'm going to come down and buy a Rivian. So all of this, I talked about the sports teams, because that's marketing Chicago into those markets. But when our sports teams aren't prominent, when they're garbage, when they're not competitive, then people don't really tune into the game. Like they say, the Bulls are going to stink. Well, if the Bulls are going to stink, then me as a Chicago corporation, I don't know how much viewership from that local market is really going to watch that game. Because when Michael Jordan came into town with the Bulls, people turned on the TV from the local market when they were going to play Milwaukee Bucks. The stadium was full, and the TVs were all tuned to watch the Bucks, because the Chicago Bulls were playing the Bucks. But you don't have a star. Like even Orlando, when it was bad, it had Shaq, and it had, who was the center for Orlando? He was awesome too. And he stayed there for most of his whole career. I forget his name. But the whole point is, you still had a superstar. Even if the team stunk, the superstar had a big following. Unlike the Chicago police, who seemed to be very annoying to me. So they really fallen in their police to me. They, I used to respect more, but now I kind of curse them. And that means you're going to burn in hell. So they moved down substantially over the last 10 years. As I got more and more attacked, their value to me has plummeted. And that means you being a police officer, to me, is garbage now. So Gibson's in that. They got to understand, Hugo's, Gibson's, and all these restaurants, even Dublin's. Now you get more of a local crowd here. Dublin's is big local crowd, right? And there's a Mexican place that has great margaritas that's around the corner, but you don't know that. There's a high-end steakhouse, Maple and Ash, that competes with Gibson's. But still, there's Morton's over here too. Morton's is right back there in the Newberry, and I'll go back around, but they don't do any advertising, and you don't know it's there. I've eaten at that Morton's, but I forget it even exists. But you got 3 premium steakhouses. I don't know what tavern is or what these new places are. And then you have Illuminati's, that is famous pan pizza. You got Giordano's and Illuminati's. They really focus on the pan pizza. Chicago's not only famous for deep dish, Chicago is famous for what? Deep dish and pan pizza. But also, Chicago's famous for Chicago thin crust. It's thicker than New York. New York's thin crust is ultra thin. So Chicago really has 3 types of pizza that is globally, and our thin crust can be touted because it's totally different than New York's. So again, we are a home or king of pizza. So make no mistake about it. Now, you see these places down here, there's the little margarita glass, and I like going to that place. But here is, Morton's was in here, in the Bellevue, right? If it's still in here, I forget. But I thought it was in here. I haven't been here in so long. I forget its presence. But let's see, the Newberry, and let's see if it says. But anyways, maybe it's not there. But there used to be 3. Now there's 2 prime steakhouses. But you have the hotels are all leading. The one good thing about Rush is it all goes north. And if you go from the north side, there's not many hotels. So the flow that you're going to get down Rush Street is your high-end tourist. So that makes the flows on Michigan Avenue come from the south, because you got the Hilton, where the Marathon is and everything, on the south, and it's a big hotel, and they flow north. So you got Prada and everything. So Rush Street and Oak, you really get the tourist. It's designed to funnel the tourist northward. And it's good. It's one way. But if you don't get people filling the hotels, that's where the Magnificent Mile and the Gold Coast Association should be looking at bringing people in to fill the hotels. Because when the hotels aren't occupied, then you get very low flow. So you want the hotels to be occupied so you can get good flow. And Todd's is a good shoe shop, and a girl that graduated from the U of A, she used to work here, and my friend Dominic used to shop here all the time, and it had excellent shoes. So my friend Victor lives over here with his wife. She's French Vietnamese. She was born in France, but she is Vietnamese ancestry, but she's French Vietnamese, not Vietnamese French. She's a French citizen. She's French Vietnamese. But let's go down this way, and you got to understand where you're getting your flow from and what matters to you to generate that flow. You have the Ritz-Carlton, and you wouldn't know it's around here, but it's right over here, too. You have the Westin over here. You have the Drake Hotel over here. But, again, how much occupancy do they have on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday? And what fills those hotels on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday? Well, conventions. Not as much tourism as conventions. So, but again, you have to figure out what types of businesses allow. So what you're going to do is get conventions that have more executives. Because executives, like partners at Ernst & Young and Deloitte and that, those are the ones that are going to stay at the Ritz or the Drake or the Four Seasons. Not the others. They'll stay at the Hiltons, the Hyatts. Truly, They'll stay at the Best Westerns when you move down the food chain. So what you want to do is, within a convention, you're looking to target the executives. So when Chicago's marketing up, they have to try to get the higher end. Like, Boeing has lots of executives here, but if they do an aerospace thing here, do you know we can have an aerospace convention in Chicago? We have major airports. We have major airports for both pedestrian. We have Gary, that's right over the border in Indiana. We have Midway. We have O'Hare. We have Rockford. So they're fairly close to each other. Yeah, there's some states around us, Indianapolis and so on. But we can have an aviation convention. But the city needs to understand how to work their marketing properly so that people end up going to the right places. You can't market the Drake Hotel or other hotels to low-end staff that will come to the convention, say, but they don't have the money, they don't get the corporate budget for it, the daily per diem for their hotel and that. They can't. Like Jen, she wouldn't be able to stay at those hotels because they're beyond her daily per diem. She can stay at a Hilton, and she did, a Marriott, but she can't stay in. Like, I had to get her the casino discount so she could stay a week at the Bellagio because her per diem wouldn't cover it. But with the casino discount, she could stay at the week at the Bellagio, and she loved it. It fit within her per diem. So you have to understand the per diems of these firms and what they can afford. The Intercontinental is now linked up with Michael Jordan because it has Jordan Steakhouse right there. And so they're promoting the Bulls. Bulls players, and I'm sorry, but those lower end players in that, still they're professional basketball players. It would be good for them to show up at Jordan's Steakhouse. Truly. And the Reinsdorfs should go there every so often. And their executive team should go to Jordan's Steakhouse. Tying the brand to Michael and Michael to the brand. And he's the greatest of all time, right? Arguably. So there's trade-offs on it, but again, they should show up at Jordan's Steakhouse. They should have players do things over at Jordan's Steakhouse. The Bulls should have different events. Now, they're saying, how many Bulls players have shoe deals? Truly. And clothing deals. So, not that many that are anything significant. So that means you would have them come over the Jordans because there's not really a conflict of interest per se. And so they would have events there and promote the Bulls, and indirectly they're promoting Jordan and they're promoting Nike. But still, Nike's promoting Jordan and the Bulls. So that's reciprocity. Remember, Nike is promoting Jordan in the Bulls with its Air Jordan because he wears number 23, Chicago Bulls. And they could come out with the jersey, the Air Jordan, and actually ask Nike to put the Bulls jersey on it. To have a special one where you can get different Michael Jordan jerseys, and that means it's shorts, with different Bulls uniforms. So the home red, the away white. And so you can get that custom jersey on your Bulls. Other ones have the generic, where it has the 23, the picture. It doesn't have the uniform, but you can get the custom one for people that want Jordan with the jersey. They want more detail. They can do that with the shoes now. And they can have the home and away jersey, and they can have the retro jerseys because they all be. when Jordan was there, all the different types of jerseys that he wore when he was at the Chicago Bulls, even his All-Star game jersey and his Olympic jersey. He was on the Olympic team. So you would have his Olympic number 23. You would have his 23 jersey from the All-Star game of those years he was in. I don't know if the All-Star jersey changes every year. It should. And the Olympic jersey should change every 4 years. But that can be on the shoe. And that means it pushes Chicago, it pushes the Bulls. And they should be promoting indirectly the steakhouse. You want the steakhouse to be successful. And so it spreads the Jordan name and the whole legacy. Basically, if everything he did great was with the Bulls. He left Carolina, he went there. But indirectly, you have the Carolina connection. But you can get in 23, maybe, I don't know what his number was at Carolina, but you can get an Air Jordan Carolina. And he can wear the different Carolina jerseys. So it's something he can do. But it really, the Bulls are tied to North Carolina through Michael Jordan. And the Bulls, North Carolina, and Michael Jordan, and Nike, and the NBA should be working together. So just because he left doesn't mean he left. So again, it's good. And obviously, he's a black man. It's a good image, PR for the black community. So I'm fine with that. I don't understand all the negativity they've been doing to me over the last 10 years. It's disgusting. But leaving that aside, and like the Lion King, most of the actors in the Lion King are what? They're all black. But it was awesome. But the Lion King, all the actors in it are black because it's from Africa. So all the stage actors are black. Because they're all from Africa, so they would only be black, right? Not South Africa. So again, I love the Lion King. I bought the tickets and took Jen to it, and they did an incredible job. I was impressed by Disney. It was awesome. And I didn't have the best seats. It was in a corner. It was turned to the side a little bit, but still a good view. I got the cheapest tickets, but it was front row. I found the cheap, it was second tier, I think, front row in the corner, but still, I had a great view. It was still front row. So, and they did an incredible job. I can't say enough about it. I was highly impressed. It's like I went to the Blue Man Group, and Jen bought those tickets and took me there, and truly, it's like Cirque du Soleil. It's the same thing. It was outstanding. The Blue Man Groups from Chicago was outstanding, but Cirque du Soleil isn't. But it was outstanding. Truly, they did an incredible job. Here we have Roosevelt University right here. And then we have the Congress Hotel right off of Ida B. Wells and Congress. But the Congress Plaza Hotel, this needs to be rejuvenated. Truly, it needs a big refresh. It would be good for Chicago. Sometimes the city needs to do things and work with businesses and give them incentive financing to do things that just further the city. So sometimes the city has to do things that isn't direct, how do you say, the business wouldn't otherwise do it. But you want to glorify Michigan Avenue, right? And so it's better for the city. And so you don't want it to look drabby and run down. Like they did some refreshes here, but you have the Blackstone here. It's nice, but these are very subtle presents. They can do Christmas windows. Truly, you can do Halloween windows, right? Thanksgiving windows, Christmas windows, and New Year's Eve and New Year's windows. Truly, change the seasons, and you have different scenes from different New Year's Eves and different scenes from different Thanksgivings in the past, present, and future. You know, the Christmas, theme with the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. Well, you can do that for Halloween past, present, and future. Futuristic Halloween costumes like next year's, what you're trying to, emphasize, movies that are coming out, like, there's going to be another Avengers coming out, and the costumes, and you can put it in the future Halloween. And you're marketing the movie Avengers that will open up next year. Truly. So that's the Hilton. It's a big hotel. It's next to the Blackstone and all this. So this is South Michigan Avenue. Now you have the Best Western here. It's right off of Grant Park. It's awesome. Right off of Lollapalooza. Lots of people, younger kids, stay here. They can't afford the bigger hotels. And that's their new logo, the BW. It's in the corner right there. They changed their logo and went with the BW, Best Western. So, I don't know if they did a refresh on the inside, but they did refresh their logo. So, the Best Western, lots of kids stay there, younger people stay there because of economics. And so they stay there, and they're right off of Grant Park. It's a great hotel. If you're coming and you want to spend more money and you have a limited budget, the Best Western, you're right off of Grant Park. Stay at the Best Western. Truly, you're right there, and you're right down the street from the Mag Mile and great shopping in that. So this becomes more residential. But the problem here is the disconnect with the hotel to what? Museum Park. They have Grant Park, but the thing is, have you ever been to Central Park? They have the rides through Central Park. Truly, they have the rides and everything else, like those little bikes you can ride at Navy Pier here. Well, how about riding Grant Park? There's an underpass you can show them that goes under Lakeshore Drive and comes up right on the lake. So you can ride Grant Park, go onto the lake, ride along Lakeshore, and then come back. But you can do little tours through Grant Park. Talk about the history of Grant Park. They put up these new people. Where is the new people? You can't see them right now because they put no lights on them. There's no lights on these statues of people in Grant Park. So at night, you don't know they're there. But they should put lights on those statues. You have all these people walking, like aliens, tall aliens, but right here at Grant Park. And so there's many vendors, even Diddy bikes can look up with tours, and you can take an audible tour of Grant Park and talk about the park and the history and some of the things that go on the softball fields and truly the things that happen at Grant Park. That's all part of coming to Chicago. You're wondering what goes on, what happens here. And Grant Park talks about you have softball teams playing here. They used to have the Chicago rugby teams used to play in Grant Park. They did. And this is all part of the tour. And so let me go back around And then you get all these buildings. Talk about Blue Cross Blue Shield and how it puts up the unique sayings and everything else. And you can see them. They're all on the backside. You have the Grant Park Hotel. So these are opportunities to purchase and make that an incredible bed and breakfast kind of, a very, prestigious boutique hotel. The Grant Park Hotel. Truly, make it how do you compete with the big guys? You take your small hotel and you make it a boutique hotel where it has more of a bed and breakfast feeling. And so, again, you make it unique. So, again, annoying people in Chicago, but that's okay. It was a turn light. But again, people use the horn too much. So, again, it was there for emergencies. Like if you're going to run into something, that's when you're supposed to bring. But there's the Grand Hotel. So, how do you compete? So, how do you take and make your little thing prestigious? And so, you do little things that are different. Like McDonald's, they have a corporate menu. And so, they have some seasonal. So, it changes. They have the Shamrock Shake and the McRib. And they try to do these things within the changes of season to cause more emphasis. And so, again, they do these seasonal things like the Shamrock Shake and the McRib to ignite interest to come back to McDonald's because they know it's the same menu and people get bored, so they offer these seasonal changes, and they're only for the season, and they go away. But it freshens up the menu, and people look for them coming. You can only get the Shamrock Shake during that time, and then it goes away. And I used to come back every year for the Shamrock Shake. It got me to go back to McDonald's. But when you're running a boutique, you're doing things more handcrafted, where your menu changes every day. And people come to you because everything is refreshed. There's lots of spark. You have to be more creative. Now, it's hard to get good tasting when you move things around a lot, but you have to have good people. And if you have good people, you can make good tasting things, and you can create this uniqueness by, unlike these other places, even Gibson's and that, they have more of a standard menu with some flair at times, but people go there for the standard menu. But when you're a smaller boutique competing with a more established restaurant like Gibson's, you have to offer more flair. So people go there because they know every time it's a new experience. Every time it's going to be amazing, like the pop-ups. They pop up and they disappear, but it's a new thing. So maybe you don't change it every day, but you refresh it every month, say every 30 days, 12 times a year. That's more intense. Every 2 months, that means 6 times a year. Every 3 months, 4 times a year. But they bring in some seasonals, but you're refreshing the whole menu. So it doesn't mean you have to get rid of it. You put a different spin on it. Like an Egg McMuffin. You have cage-free eggs. Then you have organic eggs. And then you have a different type of egg. And then you have different types of bacon, pepper bacon, maple bacon, and so on. Not just the Canadian bacon, right? And so you refresh it, and you have the English muffin, but you have different types of English muffins. You have the cheese, and usually it's American cheese, but you can put on white American. You can refresh it. So what you're doing is trying to figure out how you can carve out your little niche. It's more labor intense, but again, that's how you compete. So you're going to have to do a little bit more heavy lifting in that aspect, but it'll pay off and people know you for that, and they'll expect a little, they'll expect more flair from you, more pizzazz from you. You got that little spiciness. So it's ways to compete. But what I'm talking about with the hotels is there's a disconnect, getting back to them, is there's a disconnect from Museum Park. Truly. Magnificent Mile in that. They got the Oak Street Beach. Back to the beach we were running at Baja, which was on Illinois. But, people coming up from Oak Street Beach, North Avenue Beach, Fullerton Beach. The thing is, we didn't have our bus. If we still had our bus, this school bus we used to run, it would have worked perfect with our back to beach, and we would have just stopped at the beach and picked people up and took them to Baja Beach Club. So, again, we could have done that, but the bus broke down. They didn't maintain it. It was a horrible thing for us to get rid of it. Plus, the bus driver, he kept on going all over the city and going off route. He was making it like a taxi cab because people were tipping him. And they would bribe him to go, just take me a few blocks. Don't go by Division. Go all the way. And we're like, where the hell are you? Call him. And I'm like, well, so it broke down. We didn't maintain it. And the bus driver, he didn't stay on his scheduled route. And that caused us all kinds of problems. So we 86'd the bus. Instead, we shouldn't have. Get rid of the driver, get a better driver, get a better bus, or redo the bus. So here's Museum Park. So this is a central place if you're coming to Chicago from the hotels. And they should be working with the hotels featuring this area. This is something you can't get in another city. So let me let the truck away from me, okay? The people that seem to always be behind me. Some reason everybody stays behind me now, and it's frustrating as can be. So I don't want to see the person in the truck. I truly don't. I don't want to see the people in the car. I want my peace of mind. I don't give a crap who's driving it. Truly. So here you have the harbor. And you can have tours go out from here. So the boat harbor over here, do you know they can have boat tours here? It's not at Navy Pier. Water taxi can drop off at Belmont Harbor, Fullerton Harbor, here at, I forget whatever this harbor is called. And so, again, here's the Adler. And the water taxi can pick up and drop off people here, making it unique. So, and then you can take a tour and you can go in here with the, this is a tour of the front. The Sea Dog can go in here. You can even have a water taxi tour. Smaller tour, but the water taxi can do tours as well. And so it's a beautiful view. I love this area and love how the city looks. And you got beautiful buildings here. And this is incredibly good for Central Station, which is a residential area next to Museum Park. It's one of the benefits of living there. I never got to use this much. I wanted to, but I was working 7 days a week. from early morning to late night. So when I lived down here with Jen in Prairie in Central Station, I was never there. So I never got to take advantage of living down here. We used to jog around the lakefront here and go around the Shed Aquarium. Our jogging path took us around the Shed Aquarium. I think they have a plaque for fallen police officers. I think there, or by the Adler. I forget. It's been a long time. Here's the purchase tickets for boat rides, the shoreline sites, which is nice. I'm a big fan of shoreline. So, but they can also do bus tours. Yeah, why wouldn't you sell bus tours? Like they have the big bus in New York. They can sell bus tours too. And you can get a combo pass, which they don't do in New York, big bus, water tour. So you can do the shoreline tour and the big bus tour in Chicago. So why wouldn't they do that? Even during Christmas, they can bring them by the different places on State Street and the different areas and talk about their history of during Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween, New Year's. So you have to think of these things, these histories, and put together the tour. But they can do the tour. So you have the museum right here, bus and drop-off, museum parking, the Field Museum. So I'm wondering, because Soldier Field, like I said, it could have a museum in it for the U.S. military. And the whole point of it, then it can talk about military history in Chicago and how they did training on Lake Michigan and so on. And they can open up a museum inside of Soldier Field. So it gets traffic all year round. But they don't have a museum in Soldier Field. But they could open up a military museum in Soldier Field. Now they have the Special Olympics symbol here. And we're special. So there's the eternal flame that's made out of metal. So let me move over for the, the trash man cometh. LRS. So again, this is going in, and I'll go into Central Station. And the Metro line runs right in front of Central Station. And so this is the high-end real estate in the South Loop when you're talking high-rise buildings. There's low-rise, very nice low-rises, a little bit more towards McCormick Place. But again, this is a very prominent area. And so it's a great place to live, but I don't think they take it in. Like, I would be talking to them about having boats and getting boat slips in the harbor that's right here, getting passes to the museums, joining softball leagues and Chicago social, marketing in for seniors, middle-aged, youth, doing stuff at Grant Park, and so on. Truly, getting people engaged and out and using the stuff. They pay a lot in property tax in that, and they don't really get engaged in the amenities. And that ties them. They get these, they played softball here, they go to the museums, they do all this family stuff. It causes people to want to stay. it causes stability in real estate. You get still some turnover, but you eventually people are going to die, and you naturally get turnover one way or another. So there always will be turnover. Make no mistake about that. So don't worry about turnover. You want stability. And so, and you want people to build roots in the community. And you want them to enjoy the fruits of their community. And this is for any community. I used to love going to Patrick Henry, and we had the field house, and we played baseball, softball, we played hockey, we played everything, and they took the field away, and I thought that's horrible what they did. But again, that this area here, Central Station, is a tax. And my friend James Thornton, he was a developer, and he's a former Chicago Bear, and he was doing some developments here in Central Station. And they have beautiful place, and it's very quiet, and it's isolated. It's off Michigan Avenue. It's away from Lakeshore Drive. And so it has a very, quiet, community type feeling. So I like the area. My friend Frank used to live over here. And who built this area? I gotta say, this is one thing Richard Daley did right that Rahm Emanuel and others have did wrong. He moved into this area, and he got the developers to build this area. So that's one thing. I wished I talked to before about moving further south. He could have relocated and helped revitalize, like Mayor Jane Byrne. The wrong thing she did when she moved into Green and Green is she built the youth baseball team in that. And that was a start to get kids active and away from gangs and drugs and negativity. So she built the Green and Green, and she built the baseball field, But the whole point is, she should have did a whole revitalization and remodeled, renovated, brought in employers, and did job training, and did a whole revitalization in the building. Truly, she didn't do it. She didn't get the carry through. She moved in, but didn't do all the other parts of what she needed to do to make a systemic change. She did a little bit, and she was only in one term, but it wasn't enough. And so you're down here, there's Mark Twain Park coming up, and this is where I lived. And Mayor Daley, he lived in these places, these townhouses over here. And this is a little park for the kids. And this is where I used to live, 1515 South Prairie. And I really enjoyed. The people were very nice to me in the building. Super nice to me. People were very good to me in the building. I ran in and made some friends, and one of my friends, he owned a unit on the end with a big balcony, beautiful unit. We had a one bedroom. He had a big balcony, big place, and he's from Beverly. And he was friends with all my U of A friends, and he went to Beverly. I think he went to U of A too. But this is where the mayor used to live, Richard Daley. And this is Park Row, it's called. And so you can see it right here, Park Row. But he moved in to help build and revitalize. He got the builders to come in and everything. And he did do a good job of taking down Green and Green and revitalizing that area. And so he did some really good developments that helped further Chicago positively. My friend Frank, he has a trading company. He trades bonds at the Chicago Board of Trade. That's the bond market in Chicago. My friend Johnny worked there as well. Johnny last night worked at the Board of Trade. I used to know a lot of bond traders. A lot of people like my friend Costa worked at the CME, and my friend Tommy Rice, and there's so many at all the different exchanges and financials. My old client, Joyce, was the first female trader in the bond market. And she has a book, Joyce, King of the Jungle, I think it is. I forget the exact name. But again, it talks to her. She was the first female bond trader in the pit in Chicago. So, again, there's things that are good, but they need to get better. And I don't see our current mayor moving the agenda forward. I truly don't. And what's happening here, when you get up onto this end of Michigan, and we'll go down it, but you have a substantial community, but you really don't have the restaurants. Now, there's Burger Bar on Michigan and Roosevelt, but if you go down here, now it's good they have high-end Rush, and I don't know how many Rush children's should be affiliated with this, so pediatricians and all that, because there are lots of kids that live over here, and there are churches, and so, but the thing is, they haven't built out the infrastructure that supports the people with good restaurants and good places, truly. And you got to get the locals to buy in so they can have a life in the community. Go home, they park, and they walk over. And that's what they haven't built in this, is this type of community setting. Now, it's good. Lots of people have dogs, veterinary office and everything. But you come down here and you look and you don't really see. Now, yes, you need renter's insurance and condo insurance, State Farm. But you can also get the insurance for the whole building for the association, where the general areas you insure. So, some nice things. But how are they building out things that really supply the community? Like this restaurant over here, is it really that good? Now, what we used to do on Sunday night, we turn here, and on Sunday night, once a week, we would go down to Chinatown. And now I lived up on Prairie, and now I just crossed over. I was on Michigan Avenue, and I'm heading westward, and I think I'm on 16th Street on the crossover Wabash, or 18th. I'm sorry. We turned down 18th, and we head down to Chinatown. Now, think about Museum Park. How far is it away from Chinatown? Not far at all. We're talking about when people come in to make experiences, right? But also living in the neighborhood and taking advantage of it. You have a big police presence right here. And so, lots of police, so you can say there should be lots of security and safety in the neighborhood. And people wouldn't dare tailgate right outside the police station. That would just be insanity, right? But I guess they're insane. So, again, getting back on track, you'll see the Metro runs across here, right along Clark, where they want to put the new stadium. And it's right by Chinatown. And like I said, if they wanted to do it, Pacific Global and everything, the Chinese Pathway, Pacific Global, American Metro, they can syndicate with Chinese banks. So China could finance the project. What do they get? Diversification in currency. They're going to float the note, and they get American dollars funneling back to them. So the three banks can come together. They're small community banks, but they can syndicate it in China, buying shares of this in China. So these small banks can syndicate the stadium. And the Chinese get currency diversification in their banks. So they can hedge exchange rates and so on. So again, this is Chinatown. As you can see from Central Station, Museum Park is right on the lake, but you come over to the residential Central Station, and then you drive down, and you're right here into Chinatown. But they've done a little touch-up, but again, you think in Central Station they don't understand if they can revitalize and bring this up, that it will push their real estate value up. Now, they just did this red with the sidewalks, which looked nice. And they put this new library here. They straightened Wentmore. They put this new Chicago library here. And if they would do a refresh, kind of get this going, there's great opportunity. Even these restaurants can syndicate as a REIT. All the restaurants in here, Chinatown itself, the 50 Chinatowns in America can be listed where? On the Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong exchange. They can be listed on Taiwan and Singapore's exchange as well as a real estate investment trust. Now, Chicago would be one of the 50, but the 50 Chinatowns can be bundled into a REIT. And the performance of them go into the real estate investment trust. So how the land and the stores and everything do, and this would make it a significant play. So bringing in, the financial markets into it and listing it on foreign exchanges. You wouldn't list it domestically, you would list it over there. You wouldn't list it on any U.S. exchanges unless you wanted to drive traffic from them to the U.S. exchanges, which you could do that as well if you wanted to drive it that way. And then that means you can buy options and puts and calls. You can buy futures on the REITs. You should be able to get futures on REITs. You can do swaps. You can do forwards. But the thing is, my vision was revitalizing these things. Like Greektown is the same thing. And revitalizing, rejuvenating, and making these things like my friend Betsy, the Chinese Christian Union Church. I'm a big supporter and supposed to go there, and she was introduced me to a girl, but we haven't talked since that last meeting. But here's Pacific Global. It's one of the 3 banks in Chinatown: American Metro, Cathway, and Pacific Global. Like I said, they can do that syndication. They can put together the REIT deal. My partner David knows all them. David Kudo is my partner, and he actually interacted with those banks. And so they can do that. And so you would revitalize this. And so it would go into the real estate trust, and they would take an interest in this overseas to give them diversification. So they're investing in fellow Chinese communities that are not theirs, meaning they're American Chinese, not Chinese Chinese. But again, these people invest in stuff in China. Well, China invests back, and it creates this international trade via currency. And it creates diversification in their portfolios, and they have interest, and they have shareholder meetings, and so on. And so, again, these things can work to further, expand this positively. So, again, I joined the Chinatown Chamber. I was supposed to sit on the junior board of CASEL, the Chinese American Service League, and then I would have went to the senior board of CASEL, the Chinese American Service League. But Grace invited me to sit on the junior board. And Anne, who I don't talk to, she got on the junior board. But let's go down this way. And this is all proximity to each other, and you cross and you have all these hotels. So people coming in can do all this adventure from the Marquis Marriott and the Hyatt and that. So it's just not when, what do we say, conventions are in town, like the Hyatt that's attached to McCormick Place. Well, they want all other forms of tourism. And so they get these people coming down and thinking of these adventures. Adventures in babysitting, well, adventures in visiting the state of Illinois. And if we get high-speed rail, people that come here can go to other parts of the state quickly. And they can do day trips. But if we don't get the high-speed rail, no one's used high-speed rail with tourism. But they do in Europe. People buy the Eurorail and they move from place to place to place. And they visit all these places on the Eurorail. So think of that type. My friend Mark Schenkel, he spent 6 months in Europe with his Eurorail pass, and he traveled around Europe. But I'm thinking of that with Illinois. You come here and you might go down to Galena for the day, or go up to Rockford for the day. Truly, there's experiences up there, and I don't know off the top of my head, but that's how high-speed rail can positively affect when they drive tourism and conventions, that people can see other things. Go up to Galena to go skiing for the day. Galena in the wintertime has skiing. And you have high-speed rail, you're up there in a little bit, hour or so, and you're in Galena, and you can go skiing. And you get done skiing, you hop on, you're back in the city in an hour or so. Say, I don't know exactly how long it would take with high speed, but it has to be within an hour or two. So you get, say, 4 hours of travel. That's a day. You go out there and you go skiing. Get there and you ski in the morning and afternoon and so on, and then you eat, and then you visit the town, and you hop in the high-speed rail, and you're back in Chicago to go to bed in your hotel down here. So you spend a day in Galena. This is how you get the hub and spoke going. So you got the Wintrust Arena. They can have all kinds of different types of events in there. The Marquis Marriott. And let's go over to McCormick Place. And so these are adventures that can be had. And you have here the McCormick Hyatt. And so the Hyatt Regency McCormick. There's a sign right there, if I can stop. It's right there. It says the Hyatt Regency McCormick. So, again, you got Waste Management, WM. The W is green, the M is gold. And they are paired up with each other. Waste Management. So, you get all this, and everybody can benefit in the state of Illinois. You can do a farm community tour. Do you know that? Where you go out and just talk about the small towns and the farm community. 76% of the acreage in Illinois is used for the farming community. But we don't have any agricultural events. And around us, Iowa and all these states are big agro states. They're either into livestock and agricultural products, or both. And you would say livestock is an agricultural product. And they also are into what? Biofuels and bioplastics and many other, because, corn and that is now getting turned into plastic. And so it's trickling into many other industries. So again, and that all benefits the state, right? And benefits the Midwest and so on. I'm just saying, I live here, so I'm not touching any other places in the last 10 years, so I do what I always have done my whole life. So you have the Hyatt Regency McCormick, and I'm just passing through McCormick Center. So this is a way to feature and grow, and then all these businesses can spur off of that, and we can share the wealth throughout the state. So I'm a big proponent of high-speed rail. And that way we can attach communities throughout the state, and you can share the wealth. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And then everybody's working together. Everybody's got everybody else's back. Like you can go up to Oak Brook Mall or Woodfield Mall. Truly experience another place outside of Chicago to go shopping. Chicago doesn't have a mall like Woodfield or Oak Brook Mall. So these significant malls that are on the outskirts of the city that are huge. But you have to figure out how to intertwine them. Show if you're taking a car, you have to show how you can take these adventures and visit Chicagoland. So the city's got to give to get, and it works the other way. People stay outside the city, and they might want to take in adventures within the city. So you're giving and you're receiving. And the whole point is people have more of an amazing life, more of a fulfilled life, more adventures, and in turn, people are happier, more prosperity. You have the Hampton Inns over here. So, and then you have Paisano's Pizza right here. Here's another Chicago original. Here's Paisano's. You can see that. And Paisano's. It's almost Pizzanos, but it's Paisano's. So, and you have Paisano. I like Paisano's pizza. So, anyways, you have this, and this community, hasn't really had a plan. And so you don't really have a lot. I live down here. Jen had her place for years, so we visited. I stayed with her every time she was in town. That's where I stayed, her place, before I moved in for a while. And the point is, we never stayed around here because the area around here doesn't have any capture of the people that live here. The people that live here go everywhere else for everything. They don't really stay around here. And that's because they don't really focus on how to work with, the apartment building associations and so on that help people understand building the local community. It's not depriving the other community. It is a spoke and hub. And so this would, if you live here, this is the hub, and then you have all the spokes around you. And so it's a give and take. So sometimes you go over there, but they really haven't built out the domestic community here. That's why you have Wrigleyville and Streeterville, and these aldermanic wards are supposed to be building out their domestic communities. and then domestic communities within the aldermanic boards. So, and they haven't done that. And I don't know what our aldermen do, because it puzzles me. Seems like they just take a paycheck. So here's Central Station. And let me turn it sideways. And you can see it says Central Station right here. And it's nice. They put it right across the train. And my friend right here, this says the One South Loop Realtors. Right here, it used to say James Thornton Developments. That's signed, but the tree always gets in the way. But he got into the development business. He was a football player who got into the development business. And you have the Bears, and that's what he was, a bear. The Bears. And so he was called RoboCop. He was a tight end for the Chicago Bears. He had a hamstring injury. They blew out his hamstring, and I think with the Jets, and that's when he retired. But again, building out this area, building out the life. I don't know why the churches don't market. We receive nothing from any of the local churches. No flyer, no nothing. I would have went to the local church and checked it out, but they never invited us. We never got anything in our mailbox from the local church. Nothing. All those years, Jen, truly, she got nothing from the local church. So, again, local churches are doing a horrible job of capturing the people around them. Like my sister's house in Deerfield. Nothing from the local churches by her house. Now, I've gotten a few things from the local churches in Buffalo Grove recently. Not much. But, again, this street, which is Indiana, after the great state of Indiana, where Governor Pence was from, or Governor Pence was the governor of Indiana, the former vice president of the United States. So it was a big deal for Indiana when Trump selected Mike Pence. Truly, it was. They have, some states have presidents, other states have vice presidents. Indiana had Vice President Pence. It's a big deal. So, again, you have Grant Park and all this. And then, if you go down, Roosevelt, right? Named after our president. We have all these, Jackson, Roosevelt, Madison, Monroe, named after presidents. They run east-west, the presidents do. Chicago's on a grid. All the presidents run east and west. And so, if you're down in Chicago, you either want to head to the lake or away from the lake, you get on one of the presidents. And what do the presidents take you from? From Lakeshore Drive, you can get off on one of the presidents, head west, and you run into the Kennedy Expressway, which is 9094, which you can go north or south on. And so, again, the presidents run you into the Kennedy Expressway, named after JFK. We had the merchandise mart the Kennedy family owned. It was one time one of the biggest buildings in the world, the merchandise mart, and it was owned by the Kennedy family. So we got the highway named after the Kennedys. So Chicago has, big Democratic city, has a history of Democratic, and I like the Kennedys, well, certain Kennedys. So you have here, and it runs into the RTA, which that has the subway and the elevated line there. So you're coming from Lakeshore Drive, you got the RTA out of Central Station, and then you go further down, you have the bus lines that run right by where I lived. I used to take the Michigan Avenue bus and get off on Indiana and walk to my house or my condo on Prairie. So I used to take it from I get on at Michigan and Superior there. Michigan and Superior. When I worked at Joey Bono's, I take the bus home. They drop me off a block and a half from my house. And I take it to work as well. I took the CTA when I lived there. No reason to drive. The bus dropped me off and that. The only time I drove is when the bus wasn't at a convenient time compared to my schedule. Truly, I drove only when the bus wasn't convenient. On my start time and stop time, it wasn't convenient. But if you keep on going down this way, this is where you're going to have the new stadium development, I guess, the soccer stadium. And again, it can be funded internationally. There's lots of countries around the world that would like diversification if they think the community is worth investing in. And that's the problem with crime in Chicago, right? Why invest? Because you don't get a return on the crime. So, again, you lose money. Like tailgating and everything else. You lose money. So accidents don't make money. Accidents cost money. Make no mistake about it. I work for insurance companies. When we had life insurance and somebody died, we paid out lots of money. So those deaths cost money. We made our money before those people died. But again, if they would have gone longer without dying, we would have made more money. Like auto insurance companies, they don't make much money because accidents happen all the time. And I don't understand why they wouldn't be for all these features that prevent accidents. So they can hold their money in their portfolio for longer periods of time, and they don't need to make as much money on the premium. They make more money off the investments. That's what life insurance companies do. They make most of their money on investments, not on the premium. It's like John Hancock buys large segments of timber. They own lots of Canadian and U.S. timber. They own lots of REITs. They own tons and tons of property and many other things. So they make their money off the investments, not really off the client. Truly. That's why life insurance has gone down in cost for it's going on 40 years. Per unit cost has gone down straight for 40 years because they don't make their money off of the person. They make their money investing the premium because the person's not going to die, for 10, 20, 30 or more years. And so they make the money off the premium. So auto insurance companies can't do that because they get in too many accidents. And people don't hold auto insurance policies for long. One thing, somebody holds a life insurance policy for 30 years. They hold a term insurance policy, usually the shortest, is 10 years. Most people hold it for 10, 20, 30-year term insurance. And then it goes away or they convert it. There's a conversion period. But the whole point is they hold it for long periods of time with no negative events. And that's how they make money. But auto insurance companies don't look at it that way, and the people running them are morons. That's why over 50% of them fail. Truly. And there's all kinds of problems in the property casualty business because they just get too much claims. They get too much churn. You can't invest because you can't take that kind of risk because it's all short term. You need all this cash right away because sometimes, and you can look it up, but I'll tell you for a fact, sometimes auto insurance companies pay out 105% of their premium. 105%. They get in 100% of their premium. Every dollar that came in, they gave back out immediately plus 5% more. And that's not an abnormal year. How do you make money if you're upside down by 5%. You pay out 5% more than you get in. All the premium you pay out and then 5% more. Where are you getting that money from? You paid out all your premium. Oh, that's from your investments if you have any. So property casualty companies can't invest because of accidents. And so I work with them. They don't want accidents. They would like somebody to go 10, 20 years, stay with their company and never have a claim. That would be a blessing. They would like it to run more like a life insurance policy. But again, if I was running them, I would be all over this city and suing them and protesting and crushing and creating pacts and that to crush everything for the negativity with their driving habits in Chicago. They're horrendous. And I would put for the law, like in my city, you might, well, for me, for 10 years of being terrorized by cars, I might implement the death penalty. You're a piece of garbage. I don't care if you're my own family. I would pull the trigger on the death penalty. See ya, and you're a traitor to me. If you're my family and doing it, you would burn. Not only would I kill you now, I will kill you eternally. So, I don't get it. So, I believe in being very... Cities, you have to kick the shit out of people here. Because they think they can get lost in the masses. See, they use economies of scale to get away with filth. People move out of the burbs in rural areas to the city. Why? Because, like Michael Whitehead, my friend, he was a drug addict, and everybody in Highland Park and Deerfield basically knew he was a drug addict. So everybody knows your dirty stuff. So what do? The filth runs to the city to hide within the masses. And that's truly why they come to the city. They want to be filth. And so they come here. You think you get good people. You get pieces of garbage all over the place. Why do you think we have so many police in the city compared to Deerfield or Riverwoods or Wilmette or Lake Forest? Truly. And why do you think we have so many firemen and all that? Because people are freaking scumbags down here. They are unbelievable filth. They come in here to hide how disgusting they are. And they are unbelievably disgusting. They go about the masses to get lost in the numbers so they can be unbelievably disgusting. Unbelievably filthy and disgusting. And they hide it. That's why they like being in the city. Truly. They say it's liberal. No. It's not to be liberal. Liberal meant you were an artist and you took photography or you did gems or you did some type of art. You were in the theater and so on. They come down to hide their disgust. So you get all the gangs, right? No gangs in Deerfield. You get 30,000 people. No gangs. Never. Or Lake Forest or whatever. But they come down here because they can hide in the masses and they can do all kinds of evil things. And that's the point. That's why they come down here. They get lost in the number. The police are too busy dealing with the incredible filth So you get all levels of filth that's incredibly large. Unbelievable. Look at the South Side. Unbelievable. Domestic violence, missing people, you name it. They hide within the masses. Like Castro, where did he, with the 3 girls he kidnapped and everything, he lived in the city in Ohio, Cleveland. And he kept them in the basement. And so people come down here to hide their filth and disgust and disgrace, so they can get away and lost in the numbers. That's why the scam artists come down here and everything else. They love the masses, because the masses are asses. And so I guess I'll stop at this place and go around, but these are places I hope would rejuvenate. It's right off of UIC, Maxwell Street, University. This is a whole revitalization for the University of Illinois, Chicago, where my nephew Adam graduated from engineering and physics, a double major. And his friend Dolan, I think, was engineering. I don't know. Adam was mechanical and Dolan was electrical. But smart kids, they graduated from the University of Illinois, Chicago. They did this because they want to build the campus. They're trying to improve the campus life. But the university has unbelievable resistance. And they haven't been able to really build out. Like the University of Chicago in Hyde Park, talking to them, my friends work for, they've had unbelievable problems with the community. They want to sink money in, but all the gang banging and everything else, that means they don't understand all those black people that own the homes and Asians and blacks. They can't get the upside potential that these institutions want to sink in a lot of money to improve the campus life. So they have more students wanting to come. They have more demand for the university. So they want the university to be higher demand. Not everybody gets in. They want lots of demand. They want people applying to the university. And they've been trying, but they meet lots of resistance in revitalizing. So the University of Chicago had to stop its revitalizing plans in Hyde Park because they couldn't get the community to do the right things. So UIC I used to be. So they can't get the community to do the right things. So all this money just sits there waiting, and they want to grow. They want to expand. They want their campus to be known as awesome. You go on the University of Arizona's campus and you walk around it in that, it's incredible. The University of Arizona has an incredibly beautiful, unbelievably beautiful campus. Unbelievably beautiful campus. That's why I went there. When I walked around the mall and everything, the mountains I can see all around, and the campus experience was incredible. Unbelievable. Largest student-run carnival in the United States. University of Arizona. Student-run carnival. Spring Fling. It was incredible. The largest student-run carnival. It has the largest fraternity system by either houses or members. The largest fraternal system. Both sororities and fraternities. Who has the second? University of Illinois. Now, we had the most members and they had the most variety of houses, or we had the most variety of houses and they had the most fraternal members. But University of Illinois was one and University of Arizona was number one. And so we were both number one for different points with the fraternity and sorority system. But we were both number one. And we used to play each other all the time. Where? In the NCAA March Madness. Several years in a row, we played in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and it was great. And Bill Self left, and he went to Kansas, and then the U of I fell apart. It's been garbage ever since.